started, and I'm going to ask Senator Burns, Chairman Burns, if you would open us up in prayer.
If you'll join me in prayer, please. Father God, we're grateful. We're blessed and humbled to have the opportunity of service. Help us as we deliberate today. Give us the wisdom to continue to move Georgia forward. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right,
Amen.
thank you. All right, first bill we've got up is SB 37 LC 590049. Chairman Albers, it's the AI Accountability Act. We'd like to hear a little bit about this. I'm not sure we're going to take any action today, but I want to hear about it and tell us what you got.
We actually sent a substitute over to your office.
Oh, we got a sub?
Should be 590114S.
Whoa. Okay, 590114S LC.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually a pretty straightforward bill. We got to work with the Georgia Technology Authority, the Technology Association of Georgia, our friends at GMA and ACCG. This does just a couple quick things. It defines what AI is. It has our state and local governments put plans online for how they're going to use it. It details that in the bill, very straightforward information just to make sure that there's some transparency and the public can feel assured. They'll be working with the Georgia Technology Authority to publish that. They can publish it on their own website, or they can use GTA's website to publish that out. They'll also provide templates and other information to help out our local governments. Some obviously have more wherewithal than others do. And it creates a board of artificial intelligence. You all know we have so many boards today in the state that we all, as the Senate, we ratify those appointments each and every year. This creates one for artificial intelligence and has appointments by the governor, by the lieutenant governor, by the speaker, to make sure that we have got the experts in this field helping to guide us as a state, because it is so important for the way we do business. And I just want to say, Mr. Chairman and committee members, this does not do with a couple other states who have really gone too far out to try and regulate it. It does not do that at all. This is really just making sure that we as a state have the foundation and base in place. And with that, I would yield to any questions you have.
Questions? Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, I'm curious, and you know, one of the things that we're on one hand, we're cutting red tape and trying to cut down bureaucracies. And if you create a board for artificial intelligence, the whole, I'm kind of curious where that goes. What are we trying to do there with, what will that board, what's their powers? What are they supposed to rule on?
That's a great question. The boards that we typically have are used to provide wisdom to both the executive and legislative branches on things that are important to the state. Think of the Board of Public Safety, the Board of Corrections, the things of that nature. So it's not necessarily creating red tape, Senator. In this case, it's having that group of people help to guide all of us because they are the industry experts in the fields that they do. And as things are approaching in artificial intelligence, which will be the biggest thing that impacts our lifetimes, we want to make sure we have the smartest, most capable people providing wisdom to all of us here at the state.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, I'm still at a loss. Okay, if I go to the boards of pardon and paroles, they decide who's getting out, who's not. They, you know, the Board of Natural Resources is adopting rules on the whether we're going to drain the swamp or not. They, but I look at it and I'm like, okay, I don't know what artificial intelligence, what, you know, I'm trying to get my arms around, okay, what's the decisions that they would make, or, you know, kind of give me a little bit of heads up on it.
They're going to make more recommendations to the state than they will necessarily decisions. The goal for them would be is if people do not provide information about their local governing authority, or if a state agency isn't doing their job, they will probably work with them to make sure they have the right information to do that. We have the Georgia Technology Authority, as you're well aware, that has a group that has our state CIO and other folks. However, that only falls under the governor's purview. That doesn't do any of our constitutional officers or any other part of Georgia government. It certainly doesn't impact our cities, counties, or school systems. But if something is that important, we would set a board up for what that is. Again, we have a lot of boards, but this one will impact more than anything. And I always remind people, know, we've been the number one place for business, so we like to brag about all the time for the last 11 years now, I believe it. In the future, if we're not the number one place for AI, we will not be the number one place for business. They will be dynamically tied together.
What number? Senator McLaurin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, good to see you. Understand, appreciate your bill. Are you familiar with the plot of the Terminator movies?
Well, it's been a few years, but I think I've got it. Yes.
Okay, so we're all familiar. One of the Skynet was one of the plot lines in that movie, and once human beings entrusted themselves completely to AI took over and a lot of bad things happened. I think that's a fair summation.
Rise of the machines.
And whether that happens specifically or not, is it fair to say, Mr. Chairman, that the development of AI may be a development of the same magnitude and importance as maybe even the development of the internet in the first place to humanity?
Thank you, Senator, for bringing that up. I actually think this is far more powerful than the internet could ever hope to be, because the internet was a repository of information where you could post and gather information. This is more like Adam and Eve because it can think for itself. And it's very exciting. It's going to solve some of our greatest problems on the planet, but it also has the propensity and possibility of doing significant harm. And we just want to make sure we stay ahead of it. Again, some other states have really kind of gone off to regulate private industry, et cetera. We don't want to do that right now. What we want to do is just say, let's make sure we have our house in order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any? All right, Senator Jones, what number is that?
11, please.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. I'm looking at over on line 109 on your bill.
Mhm.
And it states that this body, the board that you created, will be making recommendations. And my question is, does those recommendations have any kind of enforcement or any way to compel the industry to make those respective or incorporate those respective recommendations?
Yeah, so the recommendations they'll be making will be to both state and local governments. So that could be anywhere from any one of the departments we have, our constitutional officers. It could be to our economic development team of, boy, this is important that we embrace these type of things. But the whole goal at the end of the day is we will change the law should we need to change the law. However, for locals to make sure they're putting good practices and procedures in place, it gives them something they don't have. And, and I look at some of the larger metro counties that have large staffs, right? They got a lot of folks, they've got different departments of people that can help out with this, but there's a lot of, cities, counties, school systems that don't have that. So this is a way for us to also help them a bit further.
And we just want to follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
How do you define intelligent system usage plans? How do you define the term usage plans in here?
Well, artificial intelligence usage plans. So a use case is a terminology that's used of how am I going to use this and how are there going to be what's called a human in the loop at all times. So AI is defined using three different buckets, if you will. There's AI in the loop. So imagine a circle with a dot in the middle. You're controlling everything that's happening in it. That has been going on for a long time now. Then there's AI on the loop. So imagine that circle and you're just on it. So you're watching it, but you're not necessarily involved in everything, which is okay, which is where we are in some cases. But the fear is AI out of the loop, which means it's doing everything. And that's where it gets concerning, especially as we've seen AI hallucinate. As an example, it's made up case law. It's actually created a Bible verse that didn't exist before. It'll get better over time, but we want to make sure we keep that human either in or on the loop to protect that, to make sure that whatever decisions or automation it's doing, it'll bring great progress to us, also has that checks and balances in there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel better educated
Yes.
already.
all right, we're gonna go with Senator Mallow and then we'll go with Senator Cardin Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Albers, I just have a question as it relates to how this would assist in protecting local governments as AI is constantly learning and as governments tend to feed it data. My question is, how do we preserve the right that data is proprietary to the government? As AI learns, it may take that data to use elsewhere. And would this bill help to ensure that data, that is local data, is protected and not to be used on the back end in other places?
That is a great question, and this bill is designed to help one of those very specific instances you just mentioned. Because if they put together policy and procedures of how they're going to use it, how they're going to interact, usually with third parties, right? They're using a cloud provider as an example to do that. This will make sure that they have their information and their proprietary information, how they're going to hold their data, the risk they're going to assess, et cetera, all on the front end of that. And again, for the smaller, more rural governments that don't have that ability, GTA is going to be able to provide a lot of that information to them. We'll provide them the templates they need to do that, the wisdom they'll need to help get them there, so they can all learn from each other. Also, ACCG and GMA, they want to work together with everybody too to help out all of our counties and cities. But that's a great question.
All right, Senator Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, Chairman Albertson, let's take this back a minute, if you don't mind, just kind of bring me, we're saying this board won't have any quote, quote, regulatory authority, basically is what you're saying right now. But they'll create a board. Two questions. I mean, how do you police the internet? How do you police? I'll give you an example. You know, I was running for office here several years ago and people were buying burner phones. My competition was buying burner phones and releasing stuff out on me that I never said or did anything about it. I couldn't do anything about that. It was just out there. That was a simple burner phone they went to Walmart and bought and started doing things. I mean, we're talking about as Senator McLaurin said, a Skynet program here that, you know, can virtually, you know, come and consume us all, take over the world, and, you know, we'll work for them. But how do you, if we're going to start a board, why would not we give it regulatory authority? And if we do give it regulatory authority, how would we police it? How is that possible?
Well, policing the internet, I'm not sure can necessarily ever be done, to be candid with you. But artificial intelligence, because it's grown so significantly, the goal is how are we going to handle that as a state and local governments? How are we going to make sure that we put the protections in place, the proper use in place, but also embrace it? I mean, we can't pretend it's not there and not use it either. It's happening around us. So what this seeks just protect where we are today. Now, there is other legislation that Representative Brad Thomas and I actually worked on last year, which is all the deep fake technology and things you're seeing going on. That's pretty scary. We actually had it at the Cobb County precinct meeting last Saturday, where one of the folks running for the chair put an endorsement from President Trump as a deep fake, and everybody in the room believed it. Until somebody came up and said, wait a minute, that's a fake video. Those things are going to continue to happen. That's something we'll have to address down the road in one way, shape, or form. But this is very narrow and trying to make sure, Candy, I call it, we eat our own dog food bill, right? If we're going to say this is important, then we need to get our own houses in order.
I think it's a good start.
All right. Any other questions? Senator, we're going to go to the public and then I'm going to let you wrap up.
Thank you.
We have one, is it Kaylin Day? Come on up to the podium if you'd speak. And then is Carol Driscoll here? Correll, are you, what bill are you speaking on?
107, 108.
Oh, 107, 108. Okay, thanks. All right. There you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee members. I'd like to thank Senator Albers for bringing this legislation forward and his willingness to work with ACCG and GMA, as well as working with GTA and TAG. It's been really great to have all the stakeholders together to talk about this bill. So we really appreciate that. And considering the rising popularity of AI, some governments may look to start utilizing this as a tool. And it's helpful to have a plan in place to address roles, responsibility, as well as data privacy measures, as was already mentioned. Excuse me. We appreciate the substitute's inclusion of allowing the Georgia Technology Authority to host local government's AI plans, since that was a worry of ours, since some of our counties are not able to keep their website. It may not be maintaining their websites on their own merits, maybe having their chamber do it. So we're decreasing that administrative burden on them. So we really appreciate that inclusion in the substitute and removing that administrative burden. Again, thank you to the sponsor and thank you to the committee for letting me speak today. I'll hold for any
Thank
questions.
you for coming back to speak on this. Sorry
Of
we didn't get
course.
to
Happy
you the
to,
other
happy
day.
to.
All right, any other questions? And then I'm gonna let Senator Albers wrap it up and then I'm gonna make a comment and kind of tell you where we're gonna go from here on this bill. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is actually pretty straightforward. It just lays foundational information that we're going to need and processes into place in order to make sure that Georgia is leading while at the same time protecting AI in everything that we're doing. It is consistent with the group that I work on, which is a multi-state policy group, working with our counterparts and the other 50 states. As you've heard from ACCG, we also worked with GMA, GTA, TAG, to have everybody in consensus and aligned. This is the right thing to do.
Okay. Well, we're just gonna do a hearing on this, and if we have to have another meeting to pass it, I need to talk to you offline. I can tell you that, I got a call from Congressman McCormick asking us not to do anything on AI, saying that they were gonna do it at the federal level, that this is a federal issue in his mind, and he thinks that the United States is competing with China and other countries. And if each state does something different, it's gonna be this state's doing this state's doing that, and he thinks it needs to come from the federal level. I'm not saying we're not gonna pass it because of what Congressman McCormick said. But I do want to talk to you offline, because I do have some concerns that if each state does something different, do we have any continuity, if you will, from an overall United, this is almost a US issue. I mean, it's an issue for Georgia, don't get me wrong, but it's an issue for the country. And we need to have some.
If I could just address
So
that.
I'm just going to tell you what he told me, and he said, please hold off on anything. I'm working on something at the federal level that will take care of all these problems. So I'll come back to you, but I want to,
Mr. Chairman.
what number?
If we need to change the congressman's mind, I'm always happy to pack out a town hall in Roswell to persuade him.
Yeah,
Up
he-
to you, Mr. Chairman. You just let me know.
Okay.
Y'all did it once, you can do it again.
I think. Mr.
But
Chairman-
anyway, any other, you got a comment?
Mr. Chairman, two, I just want to remind the senator from the 14th that, what was that, Terminator? Sky, whatever. Okay, you got to go back a little further to 2001: A Space Odyssey. And that actually established the evidence of AI overtaking the universe. So I appreciate Chairman Alvarez's bill. I think it is reasonable. I'm fundamentally opposed to boards, but we have to have something here to provide oversight.
Yeah, that's the one issue that I do have a problem with is we just rolled back the
Right.
red tape, and now we're going to create more bureaucracy. But I want to talk to you offline, and
If
we
I
can
can-
have another meeting.
If I could just address very
Yes.
briefly, if you would mind, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I appreciate that, and I wish our friends in Washington have been praying for the last 15 years that I've been up here, that they would do things at that level, that we wouldn't have to always do it at the state level at patchwork. My confidence is a little higher now than it's been in the past. However, I appreciate the music.
Yeah.
But this what you see here has nothing to do with what the federal government can or cannot do. This
Okay.
has to define artificial intelligence in Georgia code. And then it has to work with our local cities and counties and our state government to put a plan in place. Nothing Washington DC could do will have any impact on what this bill does whatsoever. And Kimberly, we're competitive. So as Georgia, we want the best and brightest to be guiding us to do that, different than others. So if they come up with plans that will help out for overall the security of it, that's going to impact states and the way they're going to do data, I think that'd be great to have a consistent plan, but actually nothing they'll do has anything to do with this bill.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Can I just echo the chairman's comments? I mean, I don't want to hurt your bill by speaking in favor of it. But to that point, you could imagine a federal bill governing the substance of how AI operates. And this is more of an accessory role to advise and guide
Mhm.
state and local governments. And the federal legislation would never set up something that would do that. So
Correct.
I just wanted to echo the chairman's comments.
All right, we're going to hold off on taking action today. Senator, we will have another meeting. I want to get with you offline and let's discuss. I want to look at the sub.
Sure.
And we'll go from there. But thank you very much. It's an important subject. I want to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Appreciate it
very
all.
much. Thank you. All right, Senator, or Majority Leader Gooch, if you would come up, I think you have a resolution you'd like to talk about. It is LC 112303, commending Secretary Loeffler. Go ahead.
Well, good morning. I didn't know Chick-fil-A was going to be here, or I would have gotten here earlier and enjoyed some biscuits with you guys. But
Well,
now I know
let me
why you
just
have
say
such
this.
an important meeting at
This
such an early
chairman
time of day.
Is going to take care of its committee, and that's why they come here at 8 o'clock, because I take care of them. It's called leadership.
In fact,
And you want to look that up.
it's an inducement to get everybody out of bed early to get.
Hey, before you start, Mr. Majority Leader.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to introduce Senator Bearden's new to the committee and want to welcome you. Thank you for being on this committee. You're going to be an asset to this committee, and so we're glad to have you. Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
Leader Gooch.
Last week, the U.S. Senate in their unbelievable wisdom confirmed Kelly Loeffler to the Office of Administrator of the Small Business Administration in a bipartisan vote, to say the least, 52-46. Kelly Loeffler, as you all know, is a Georgia girl. She was a U.S. Senator formerly. She was raised on a farm in Illinois. She went to school there. She was involved in her local church. She was a 4-H member and went to college, I think, at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and she earned her bachelor's degree there. She went on to Duke University and earned her master's degree in business administration.
Great job, Mr. Leader. We'll entertain a motion.
You don't want to hear the rest?
You've done a great job. You got a motion by Chairman Summers, second by Chairman Burns. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3.
Come on, McLaren. Come on, you can do
All
it.
right,
You
you
can
can
do
do
it. Bipartisan.
All right.
Come on.
Public
Come on.
debate.
He's almost there. He's raising his hand.
Okay, all opposed. So we got one opposed.
Bipartisanship.
He'll vote for you on the floor.
All right, well, thank you. Well,
But good job.
I was just going to tell Chairman Albers, this is how you get a bill passed in your committee.
All right, good job, Majority Leader. And by the way, she'll be here on March 3rd. She's coming to the chamber to address the Senate on March 3rd.
I didn't even have time to look up.
McLaren will introduce her.
Yes. All right.
I didn't even have time to look up who the Democrat was.
Is Senator Nikki Merritt here? Oh, come on up. We're going to hear your bill.
Okay.
And I think you've got somebody zooming in too, correct? All right. So,
He's trying to get it.
okay, let's see what we got here. We've got LC 560255, Senate Bill 167.
Yes. 0255, yes.
All right, Senator Merritt, the floor is yours.
Great. Good
Tell us
morning.
about this.
Good morning, members.
Morning.
All right, we have another AI bill. I really appreciate the conversation. I am a sci-fi geek, so I appreciate the conversations about Space Odyssey, AI. Yes, I have, I'm a long Terminator fan, and yes, I believe Skynet will take over. So this is kind of what we're talking about here. We know that AI is new, but it is taking over. So I think it would be very cutting edge and good for us here in the state to kind of be aware of what AI is and is not doing and put in some safeguards. So Senate Bill 167 is a measure designed to regulate the use of AI systems and automated decision systems in commercial and government settings to prevent algorithmic discrimination. This bill aims to establish a transparent and accountable framework for businesses and developers using AI, ensuring that they do not perpetuate biases that could negatively affect consumers. It specifically targets AI that is making decision-making processes in employment, education, financial services, and healthcare. First, I want to also thank Chairman Beach for just allowing me to speak about this today, and I'm hoping we can get a vote on this today. And while this bill looks very complicated, we are inserting a code because this is fresh. This is new because AI is basically new. It's actually pretty simple. The foundation of the United States is you cannot discriminate against people based on things like race, religion, sex, or disability status. What this bill does is extends those legal principles to the way that AI is being deployed in various areas of our life. AI is confusing, is complex. We can't all explain how it works, how the algorithm even works. I think many of us in here, have expressed that concern. But both parties in this chamber, this is new for us. And I'm going to have the person coming on to help me testify. His name is Matt Shearer, and Matt is Georgia born. He was raised, he's a lawyer, attorney. He serves as a senior policy counsel for the Center for Democracy and Technology. He is nonpartisan, and his organization just works on protecting our rights and civil liberties in the digital age. But something that everyone in this room knows is that AI systems are not sophisticated enough to be responsibly left to make sensitive decisions. It can't without guardrails. It's just a machine. It only knows what's programmed. And at the end of the day, these AI-based tools are only able to reflect the biases and intent of the people who are programming and deploying them. Human beings are trained in fields to be anti-discriminatory. They are trained with anti-discrimination laws, and only humans are capable of understanding the complexity of those laws and what they're seeing. But the AI decision-making systems and algorithms can only see patterns without the context around them. And without appropriate guardrails, these systems will make assumptions based on certain patterns, and it could end up being discriminatory. They can break laws in a way that harms people's jobs, applying for loans, getting into school, or even the quality of healthcare services. What SB 167 is just straightforward. We cannot allow AI systems or algorithms to be used as a veil to hide discriminatory decisions or the intent. People who use these tools need to be aware that they must follow the same existing civil rights legislation that's on the books. And just like a human being would follow if they were the one making these evaluations as opposed to a machine. Because at the end of the day, this is a machine and it only knows what we're feeding it.
Can you talk a little bit about the Attorney General's role?
Yeah, so we need someone to enforce, and let's see if we go back here. Because anytime in these bills, they're like, well, who's gonna enforce? It would be the AG's responsibility to investigate the violations. That's on line 471 and 490. Companies must maintain AI records for at least 3 years. That's on lines 491 and 510. And the violations are subject to penalties under the Fair Business Practices Act. That's on line 511 and lines through 530.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Senator Mallow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not really a question, but I recently saw a news article, Senator, that described a nurse that was traveling through the airport and they'd used AI facial recognition, and she was detained and jailed for 9 days using that type of software until they got the actual photograph and information from the other state where they had been looking for this person. And while they had similarities, they didn't look alike at all. And so I do have great concern of how different governmental entities are using AI to match people's face and, detain them without making sure that's the right person. It can happen to almost any one of us going through an airport.
Okay. Senator Burns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you help me understand, and I'm looking for it in the bill, but in the summary, it points out to the consumer must be notified each time a consequential decision is made by an artificial intelligence system. What is a consequential decision?
I think what we're referring to, and I'll let Matt Shearer talk about it when he comes on, but, and he is here, and I'm gonna let him testify.
Okay.
But consequential decision is, I believe what we're trying to say, if it makes like a decision or determination that would really negatively impact someone, and it's making a decision like what we're saying, what Senator Mallow was referring to. It's using its algorithms, and it's actually using, I guess, whatever information is pulling that can seem discriminatory to make a decision that can impact someone's life.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
And what-
It requires, apparently your legislation requires, and I apologize, I just had a chance to glance through it, requires that consumers be notified. Okay, I mean, who would notify them and how?
Let's see, did we put that in there?
Line 58 has the definition
Of
of
consequential?
consequential decision.
Oh, yes,
And
it is.
And these are like material opportunities, the way I read the bill. So if you get a lending decision and they say, no, we are not going to lend you money, then there'd be some asterisk that says, this decision brought to you by, automated something or other. So then you'd have a chance to have a conversation with your lender about it. I mean, I think that's the idea, is that there's transparency in material decisions. If you get denied an educational opportunity, you get, you're not admitted to a school, that sort of thing.
And again, who would be responsible for notifying the consumer?
I think whoever's already making a notification about the decision. So my sense is based on the list
So
that,
if it's a financial institution or an educational institution or
Right.
if they utilize an AI tool to help make that
Mhm.
decision.
I think that's right.
They are responsible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Senator Hodges?
Senator, thank you for the bill. Question. Yep, isn't it true that we already have laws that outlaw discrimination in banking, discrimination in renting, discrimination?
Yes. That's
Then-
correct, Sue.
Then if we already have those laws, I mean, why is it necessary to have a law that prohibits how you do it? If it's illegal anyway, then why is this necessary?
And I think that's what I was saying in my statement. It can have an inadvertent consequence because it's a machine doing it, right? It's not a human.
Well, don't existing discrimination laws address, I think it's called disparate impact. I mean, you might not be trying to
Mhm,
discriminate, but the results are that you are discriminating
mhm,
and that is itself illegal.
mhm.
So again, I don't get why we need laws. I mean, if we already have a law that prohibits discrimination,
Mhm.
why do we need a law that prohibits a particular way we discriminate?
And I guess I'm gonna lean back on, because this is a computer doing the discrimination, it's not a human. I mean, I don't know, somebody can help me as an attorney in here, but a human
Well,
can discriminate, but a machine might not know that it's doing and it's breaking.
I'll give
the
you an
law.
example. I mean, I was a banker.
Mhm,
And we're highly regulated and, we make decisions sometimes subjectively, sometimes objectively, machine-based decisions where based on credit scores and a bunch of other information. But if the results of our decisions show a pattern of discrimination,
mhm.
then we're in violation.
Right.
So again, I ask, if we have those laws to protect people from being discriminated against, why do we need a law that proscribes how we do it?
Right, because Senator, it's happening already, and just like many of you are finding out today that AI is actually doing this, and that we have entities that are discriminating, and we have no guardrails on that. The fact that we even need this bill or know that this exists is why we need this law.
Thank you.
Is the guy.
Okay.
Yes,
Why don't you introduce your guest?
Yes,
And then we'll-
this is, I have his name, this is Matthew Shearer, and he's gonna come in and talk to us a little bit more about, he's gonna tell the story and kind of talk about his work and explain it. But again, he is Georgia born. He serves as senior policy counsel for the Center for Democracy and Technology, and that is a nonpartisan organization.
Welcome.
Chair Beach and senators, thank you for the opportunity to testify. Like Senator Merritt said, I live in Oregon, but I'm a Georgia boy. I was born at Northside Hospital, and I was raised by a single mom living in Mableton, Marietta, Smyrna before graduating from high school at North Springs, where, among other things, I sang in all-state choir in Savannah with Representative Draper. I fell in love with an Oregon girl, and we have 2 kids, both of whom are autistic, and they're a big part of the reason why I'm here. You see, because they're autistic, they're brilliant and talented, but they don't talk the way most people do. They often don't make eye contact when they talk, and they move their bodies in unique ways. When I first noticed these differences, I was a management side employment lawyer advising companies on incorporating AI into their decision-making. I started getting worried because many AI tools looked for who's typical for a job rather than who'd be good at that job. There were even video interview systems that evaluated workers based on things like their eye movements, body language, and speech patterns, things that have no connection to job performance, but that could easily screen out people with autism, which the developer would have known had they spent 5 minutes consulting with a lawyer or other accessibility expert. Worse, affected workers generally had no idea that AI was evaluating them like this. And it's not just jobs. AI is being used often in secret throughout the economy, driving decisions on everything from who gets healthcare and housing to how much we all pay for rent and insurance. I'll focus on 3 specific problems with these systems. First, a lot of them simply don't work. Because they can be based on poorly compiled or irrelevant data and look for what's typical rather than what's good, untold numbers of Georgians are losing out on jobs, housing, healthcare, and other benefits due to algorithms relying on incorrect information or maybe even tools that are just pure snake oil. Second, these tools might break the law, including civil rights, labor, and consumer protection laws. Indeed, those laws don't work effectively on these tools right now, and that's because of the third issue. Many, if not most people subjected to these tools have no idea that they exist, much less what data they're using or how they're affecting these life-altering decisions. SB 167 would help address these increasingly prevalent issues by providing some transparency and guardrails when companies incorporate AI into key decisions about workers and consumers. Individuals would have a right to basic information about AI systems that make key decisions about them, and companies would have to test their systems for legal compliance. AI has great potential to improve the lives of workers and consumers, but only when they know about and have agency in the AI systems that affect their lives. Conversely, if consumers and workers are in the dark, the free market for these systems doesn't work, much less work to the benefit of ordinary people. I'm glad to provide additional information or examples or answer questions, and I thank you for your attention.
Senator McLaurin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for being here. We appreciate your thorough credentialing as a Georgian in advance of your presentation. Can I ask you, since obviously the chairman made it clear to the committee that there's a request from the federal level that we sort of pause on substantive measures, and earlier we heard Chairman Albers talk about how his bill might be useful anyway. Can you speak to the relevant differences between federal and state attempts to look at this issue and why it might be important to have a state level approach to this in addition to federal?
Well, first off, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with Chair Alvarez's bill. I'll have to take a look at that to see exactly how that handles the issue. To be honest, right now, I don't know if you've noticed, but Washington has a tough time passing meaningful legislation on lots of stuff. And as a result, it's really up to the states, which are, in the words of Justice Brandeis, the laboratories of democracy, to tackle these issues. Now, individual federal agencies have been looking at this, but we're getting whiplash, obviously, from administration to administration because the different approaches and policies change so frequently. And quite frankly, existing statutory authorities right now are not really adequate at the federal level to give any particular agency or even a compilation of agencies the ability to provide what is, in my view, the main missing ingredient, which is transparency. EEOC, they don't have the ability to enact regulations that would require transparency in employment decisions. The FTC arguably has some transparency, the ability to impose some transparency regulations in certain spheres relating to commercial transactions, but a lot of the stuff that AI is being used for is outside their domain as well. So there's lots of gaps, and really the only way to address them right now is through new legislation. And since that legislation I do not anticipate coming from the federal level anytime soon, I do think that state legislation would be beneficial. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thanks.
Okay. We're going to take one last question here, Senator Burns.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation and information. Does Oregon have similar legislation to Senate Bill 167?
I'm sad to say it does not, sir. The only
Are you
state.
aware of any other state that has similar legislation, and maybe enlighten us on that?
Yes, sir. Colorado has similar legislation right now. They were, and I know that a bunch of other states have bills pending, but Colorado's the one that enacted something along these lines last year. I actually am on the Colorado AI Impact Task Force, which has been examining that law and trying to figure out, are there any tweaks that need to be made before it goes into effect next year? This is a new area of technology, and certainly a new area in trying to regulate technology. So like I said, this is, precisely where the states' laboratories of democracy are trying to figure out the best way to approach these issues.
I would, if I
Good
could,
follow-up.
I would concur with you. I don't have a lot of hope that federal legislation will be forthcoming in the near term. And I also believe with Senator Albers's position that we established basically a foundational definition of AI and then a reasonable way to at least have an inventory of what AI systems are being used in Georgia. But I
Well,
appreciate-
here's what we're gonna
appreciate
do. I'm gonna talk to Senator Merritt and Senator Albers offline. And if we need to have another meeting before Monday so we can get these out, we will. I just need to learn a little more about this. I want to thank you for testifying. I think what it's 5:30 in Oregon or 4:30. I mean, we had a chicken biscuit for you, but
Come
what time is it out there right now? 5:30?
It is 5:30. Yes, sir.
Well,
12 hours
that
till the
makes a
Hawks
lot.
game, which is how I tell time out here.
All right. Well, thank you for getting up early. Senator
right.
Merritt, we'll
Thank you, Senator.
afterwards. I appreciate you explaining this bill and let's talk offline and let's see what we can do to help you move this forward. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we have, did anybody want to speak on this bill from the public? Nobody signed up. Okay, we're going to move on. We've got Senator James, you have two bills. You have 107 and 108. You want to start off with 107 LC 550042, specialized land transit? 042? 0042? Wait, no, it's, yeah, SB 107. Let's go with that one first.
Thank you very much.
What mic are you?
Excuse me?
12? Okay, there you go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of the committee. I have been, I've had the opportunity of working with my community on HOA predatory problems in the past. And a year and a half ago, I was able to go to a HOA boot camp that we had in South Fulton and Douglas County. And I realized that it was not just our neighborhood that was around me, but it was all over the metropolitan area. So I was asked to do a hearing, and we've done 5 hearings on HOA problems, and that includes the condominium associations, trailer park associations, et cetera, all of the home associations. The first, we had one a year, the first year in the Interstate Corporation Committee and 5 in Urban Affairs. And we've gone all over the state, and we found out that it's all over the state and not just in the metropolitan area where first it started with the we acknowledged it because of the COVID-19 epidemic, and a lot of people who were laid off and couldn't pay their fees, and they chose to pay their mortgages rather than the fees on HOA. But then I found out from having that they would, once they get to $2,000 worth of liens, they could sell your house on the courthouse steps, and they were really doing this. They are continuing to do that now, but they aren't just doing it because you don't pay your HOA fees or you got behind on them. Mr. Chairman, they don't say if you painted your shutters pink or black or something, and your covenant, you have not noticed that it said you can only have white. They will charge you up to $1,000 for violating that. And then and they give you 2 weeks to 10 days to 2 weeks to change it. And if you don't do it, they start charging you every week $100 more for that same thing. You can get to $2,000 very quickly. Once in Georgia that you get to $2,000 worth of liens, they can, without even coming to you and telling you, they can now go and sell your house on the courthouse step. Somebody can come knock on your door and say, we just bought your house. And this, and so people didn't believe it, and we just kept having the hearings, and people started coming from all over. And a lot of people came from Coweta County, and that's when our rules chairperson saw that it was in his community. And so he looked at it because every time they would come from other places, I'd send them to go talk to their legislators in the House and the Senate. As a result, we have about 5 bills in the House, I believe, because of the same thing. And it's addressing different portions of this issue. We have the Condominium Association and the senator from the, from the 12th came and spoke because she and other legislators have bought condominiums, especially in downtown Atlanta, and they're experiencing the same kind of problems, but mostly, they share water in the building, the different things, and they have giving them big fines and taking people's property too and selling it. And she wants to testify on that when she comes up. And we've had about, 20 people from Buckhead that whose spouse may have died or they became disabled. They moved into those condominiums and they successfully stayed there for 4 or 5 years. And now they've lost their condominiums because of different issues that would be frivolous liens placed upon them. So I was trying to go through this real fast
No.
and tell you.
You put a lot of hard work into this.
I put a lot of work in it, and then as a result, too, last year, the study committee that I asked for was passed. And so the lieutenant governor talked to our rules chairperson who got a subcommittee on this issue also. And so over the interim, we went all over the state talking, having hearings and talking, including Savannah. I don't see our Savannah people, but they brought us down there and it was standing room only. And I mean, about 500 people wanted to speak. We were there for 4 hours. We couldn't
Okay.
take anybody else.
Senator Mallow, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chair. I'm glad that you brought this legislation. Recently, when we went through the hurricane in Savannah, there were several HOAs that had not given the city or county what's called a right of entry. And those residents, which are my constituents, were denied the FEMA resources for storm debris and the removal because they did not have a right of entry in place prior to the hurricane. And so all of them had to foot the bill for their own debris cleanup, and the HOA did nothing.
Chairman Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator James, thank you for bringing this. HOA fees are out of control.
They are.
I pay an HOA fee when I live in Atlanta here, obviously not at my home. And I guess you can go get on the board and make your voice heard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality of it is they can just, if they want to put a new roof on a building, they can just assess you for whatever you want. I hear these horror stories everywhere, and I have a little bit of knowledge being in the real estate business, but I think your $2,000 is too low, number one.
Yes, I'm trying to change.
And number two, maybe we need to dig deeper into your bill and address these out of control HOAs and figure out some way that we can address how they're able to take, because I don't believe they could take your home and get in front of a bank or a first mortgage. I have to research that, but there's.
Yes, they can. Unfortunately.
Somebody's still gonna be responsible for that first mortgage from saying, somebody has to assume that, or it has to go with it because they would not lose their position. I don't believe they can lose their position on the first mortgage. I don't think, am I wrong? They can lose their position. You're pretty sure they can?
They
Well, the HOA
somehow.
excuse me, HOA would pay it off. That's right.
But we found out too that some of the HOAs are the ones who go to court and batter people's houses, foreclose on them and take their properties. And it's foreign entities that are have these management companies, and most of the management companies have anywhere from 35 to 100 HOAs that they manage. But they're not even owned in Georgia at all. And most of them not even owned in the United States. So those foreign entities, just like they're doing our farmland, they're going and buying it up. They're doing this to our housing as well.
Okay.
One more question, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Let me reiterate to you. In most HOAs, and I don't know, I would not speak for everybody on this board here if you pay them. you'd be at $2,000 in 2.5 months. You'd be, boom, you'd be there. And that's just not paying your HOA fee. I don't know what else you'd be, if you were assessed something for shutters or putting a Christmas wreath outside, whatever, that type of thing. So I'd like to see you go further with it.
Thank you. We had at least, we got letters from different people, especially those that came and gave testimonies. And we have over 87 people who actually lost their homes. They said they can't get them back now, but they want to stop this trend in the future.
Appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
All
Mr.
right.
President.
Senator Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to commend my colleague from the 28th for the years of work that you put into this legislation. I've served with her on both the Interstate and Urban Affairs Committee. But I want to point something out to this body, particularly in the 10th district. There are a lot of homes that are owned by corporate by Wall Street. They've invested significant amounts of dollars in these newer subdivisions, and they bought up a lot of the individual single-family homes. And by doing that, they control the HOAs. So a profit stream for them is levying these enormous fees against the homeowners in those divisions, in those subdivisions, and that adds to their bottom line. If you Google it anywhere, you'll see Stockbridge in the south side of this state, the south side of Atlanta is ground zero for those kind of corporate purchases throughout the United States, and this bill will address those concerns, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to make a comment, because if you don't do something, it's a problem in my district too. Some of this HOA is becoming a criminal enterprise. I just want you to know, this is the word, some of them. So we need to do something about it. There shouldn't be any,
I will tell you, I agree with you. I have a condo and
Yeah.
Out of control.
this HOA that
Yeah.
manages ours, they're out of control.
So we gotta put a stop in it.
Senator Sims, you want to speak?
Thanks, Senator James. And this morning I come as a consumer, not as a senator, having dealt with this for at least 5 years. And we've even had in the building where I live, the individual that was the eyes and the ears of this HOA debacle, sat on her sofa last summer and passed away from a massive heart attack. Elder abuse, because these individuals were getting ready to lose their homes. They are so afraid. They've been there for years. They own their homes in the building. I can always go back to Southwest Georgia, but they couldn't. And they could not afford to purchase land anywhere else. A lot of these individuals that are taking over are foreign entities. We don't know who they are. They've come into the building. It's like a cartel. It's like a nightmare. Whatever you see on TV, they threaten you, and on and on. But thank you so much, Senator James, for all that you've done.
Thank
to
you
help
for being here
Thank you.
as a consumer and a senator.
Yes.
Representative Davis,
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you for being here.
First, I want to thank Senator Donzella James for having all the meetings she's had. And she invited the House to come together and all of us work as a unit to try and address this crisis. What we really need is a guardrail. We're going to have to slow down what is really happening here. I have listened from urban areas to rural, where people are actually having their property taken for less than $2,000, some of them. And then once they hit the 2,000, and most of the times that 2,000 is due to attorney fees, late fees. Do you know, I have an elderly woman who kept going to court because they said she was at the 2,000 mark and she had late fees. She started having the bank pay hers assessment. And she said, plus pay them an extra $16 to $20 because I want them to leave me alone. She gave me 2 years of her bank statement, yet they still every 90 days would say, oh, you're at the 2,000 and we're going to take you to court. This woman elderly had spent over $20,000 going to court. We have to have these guardrails. We have to put a stop to this crisis and people abusing and using unfair business practices in the HOA.
You want to mention your numbers of your bill, your bill numbers?
You've got some bills coming.
Well, with all due respect, we're at a 10 bill limit in the House. So at the present time, I'm unable to file my bills. because I've already gone over 2 years of the,
The one I went to yesterday was Sandra, so and your name was on there.
well, which one? Oh, no, the
The one-
62, it's not, I'm a co-signer.
Okay.
House Bill 62, I'm a co-signer, but I have my own bills on housing.
All right, Senator Summers.
Can I? Okay. The two of you.
We're gonna, no, we're gonna, I'm gonna call on them, Senator James, in just a second.
Okay.
Senator Summers.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, for the lack of knowing how to take action on this thing right now, I'd like to see the $2,000 obviously be raised substantially, but also we need to talk with legal about this. Is there a way just to basically stop HOAs from being able to foreclose on people's property?
You don't want to do
Stop it completely?
that. You don't want to do that. Yes, you do.
Okay. Senator Hodges, what number are you? All right.
Senator, I appreciate the bill. I've heard an awful lot about condominium owners associations and homeowner associations, and your bill basically addresses foreclosure. I've had, I'll throw this in, I don't want to gum the works up here, but I've had complaints about governance issues. And this does not speak to governance issues, and I don't know how much we want to do that, but I've had complaints about HOAs and COAs meeting in secrecy and not putting out notices to the membership that they're meeting, and even more egregious than that, I know of one HOA that has a rule that if there's a vote and somebody doesn't vote, the no votes, the not voting no, but without the people who do not vote, those votes accrue to the association and they can vote them the way they want to. So, I mean, those are pretty basic governance issues that
I have
that-
three
that-
other bills. These were the only.
yeah.
we wanted
I
to
haven't
do
seen the
one
other-
issue at a time.
I haven't seen the other bills, but I think there's a bunch of issues here.
Amen.
All right. All right, what we're gonna do now, we've got three people that would like to make public comment. Did you speak to both your bills, 107 and
No,
108?
well, I was basically speaking
And they're
about,
both
because
kind of,
107 would do a Osbusman office, because right now, when the people's bills get so high and they're about to lose their home,
yeah.
they have to go get a lawyer, but their fees been paying the lawyer that's gonna be against them. And so
Can you,
they don't have
can you-
a 1-800 number, so.
can you in 2 minutes talk about 108 before I go to the public?
Okay, yeah.
Because they want to talk about both your bills.
Okay, 108.
108,
Okay, 107 was the one for the Osbusman, and 108 is the
Property Owners Association Act.
yeah. Because right now there is we need to give, they don't give receipts or anything for their when they pay their dues or when they take care of any of the fees that have been put upon them for some violation. So we wanted to give a certificate of good standing, because when they go before the courts, is their word against the other folks. So we want to get something in black and white to give to them to certify that they did pay this fee every time. So if they're not going to give receipts, then they need to get certificate of good standing. And so that's what we saw that worked in about 19 other states. They give either a receipt or certificate of good standing. So we wanted to make sure. So our research people have been working with us. Our legal people have been working with us on this to try to come up with several issues that we needed to address and attack first, because the one over in the House is 28 pages because it put everything in there. And Senator Brass was our chair of this committee that's still ongoing, and he wanted to do one at a time. So he wanted to do stop the foreclosures first, because this is what's making people lose their homes.
Okay.
But it's no regulations at all. So this just puts some regulations.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to go to the public. We're going to ask Mr. Driscoll if you'd go to the podium,
Oh, yes.
please. Welcome.
Good morning.
Is it on?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on.
So good morning. My name is Correll Driscoll. I represent the Georgia HOA Alliance. I've been involved in community association governance and training of members of communities as well as board of directors, because we have a firm belief that we should not manage in isolation. And that's exactly what's been happening. The chief core reason why we have all of these complaints is because we are putting people in charge that are not being trained or have continuing education to manage these communities. So they are managing based on feelings, right? I don't like this neighbor because we were on opposite side of the fence. So this bill, Senate Bill 107, is taking a step in the right direction to help protect your citizens, members of these various communities, from foreclosures, because it's a tool of intimidation. And I've operated on both sides. I've been a board member for 5 years, and I believe in the 2-term limit, and I rolled on, and I'm a member. And I can testify to the ignorance that we place in charge of these communities. And I can testify to as a member who's constantly receiving intimidating messages. So this bill helps strengthen the entire members of these communities. We need to protect these members. I like the idea of possibly eliminating or capping out or increasing the amount of being behind your dues, 2,000 limit, right? Well, my dues just got increased to $1,600. If I miss a dues payment and then they throw some fines at me, I have to fight to keep my home. So please support this bill.
Okay, thank
as
you.
well as Senate Bill 108.
All right, we've got Miss Bradfield, I think. Is she?
Oh.
Betsy?
Mr. Chairman, are we voting on this bill today?
Yeah, I'm gonna take action on these two bills,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
if it's the will of the committee, if y'all would like to. Yes,
Do you want me to do 107 and 108 together?
yeah, do them both
Okay.
in 2
We'll do it.
minutes.
Betsy Bradfield, Georgia Association of Realtors. We are opposed to Senate Bill 107 as written, but we are supportive of a lot of what is in the bill and of the general idea of what the bill needs to address. So we do agree very much that there needs to be reforms to Georgia's HOAs and POAs, but we'd also support a few changes to this bill and to Senate Bill 108 to make sure that we're all on the same page. So in Georgia, to manage the property of another, you have to be a real estate licensee with 2 exemptions. And then that means that we represent, the Georgia Association of Realtors represents all 48,000 of our realtors, but we also have a property managers as our clients. So there's also a license for community association managers that is currently regulated by the Real Estate Commission. And many of the problems that we're hearing about some of these quote unquote rogue HOAs are not professionally managed licensed community association managers. We're hearing that a lot of them are managed by individual property owners who don't understand Georgia's law, and so they're not following Georgia's law. So there are several items in this bill that we would support, like we support the dispute resolution process. Right now, there is not any sort of dispute resolution process. And we support addressing that threshold for the foreclosure. So right now, there's no real way for a property owner to seek recourse if an HOA is violating their own governing documents, unless you can find a lawyer to sue. And that's nearly impossible. And the lawyer would have to basically lose their own money to take on such a case. And in this bill, right now as written, it just strikes the $202,000 threshold to foreclose. And while well-intentioned, without a new cap, it just means that someone can foreclose upon you for $2,001. So we would suggest, or we would like to support a new cap, potentially one that is tied to the threshold of the value of the property, because the values of properties inside an HOA can vary significantly based on if it's a 1-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. We're also concerned that this would require HOAs to waive association fees if the unit owners face hardships. And while we appreciate that idea very much, there's no way in the bill for the HOA to recover these lost fees.
Okay.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. And as I understand, this requires a lot of DCA, and I'm not aware of any additional funding in the budget to address this. There is a $25 per unit charge in here, but I don't know if that is enough. And we are also opposed to Senate Bill 108 for just one reason, which is that it would place liens for medical debt ahead of liens recorded for association fee debt. And we do not support the restructure of the lien priority.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we got one more speaker and then I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do on this. Ms. McPhillip? McKillips? All right. Can you, 2 minutes? We're about to wrap this meeting up.
I'll try. I can talk fast.
All right.
But before I start, I do want to thank the committee for allowing us to speak. I am on the board of my condo and I've lived there for 24 years. I am the treasurer of the Buckhead Condo Alliance. I'm secretary of the Buckhead Council of Neighborhoods, which represents 28 neighborhoods in Buckhead. I'm active in the Midtown Quality of Life, which represents about 50 communities. So I do interact with a lot of different communities, and I have studied these documents. They all laugh because when we go to a meeting, I have all these orange tabs on the document where things need to be addressed. I support the bills. However, all of the bills which I have read, and there aren't too many bills to try to read it all and follow it. First off, you've got to change the definition. There's too many associations, homeowner groups that have changed and they call themselves civic associations so they can get around the homeowner rules. And that needs to change. There's also the issue that in some communities, whether it be single family or condo, there's business owners that have commercial units. And so we need to get away from just residences because the business owners also own their unit. And that's something to consider. In our building, we've twice had absentee owners, and they have no idea what's going on. And they are only after the investors. They are not after the owners. We had a coup last year and we ousted a president that did not feel, in fact, and I was saying yesterday, his comment was, we don't need to ask the owners because we know the owners well enough. Well, that didn't work. And so we did a coup and we got him out of there. They never previously disclosed the voting results. The new board does insist on that. We have no term limits, which needs to be addressed. The whole alternative dispute resolution absolutely needs to be in there. They should be able to foreclose, but there needs to be much, much stricter guard rules on this. The realtors, I understand their position. However, we are owners. I own 2 units in this building, and many of you are property owners. Well, I would assume most of you are. This goes in for single family residences as well as condo associations, but we need to. In reference to, I believe it was, I can't see his name, the gentleman on the end, the whole document thing needs to be rewritten. There is a condo association in Buckhead that's condo documents have not been rewritten in over 60 years.
Okay, we're gonna have to cut you off.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but we're gonna close public hearing. Here's what we're gonna do. Let me tell you what I want to do. Just listen to. I want to take action on your bills, but I want to have a special call meeting. I've just told Megan to try to get a meeting either Friday or Monday. I want Senator Summers, I'm going to ask you to work with Senator James, and you said you want to strengthen this bill.
And Senator McLaurin.
And Senator McLaurin, if you two would get with Senator James, put even some more teeth into this bill. I am sick and tired of these HOAs. They're out of control. But I was going to take action today, but Senator Summers leaned over and said, I want to make this even stronger. So we're going to do, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do, listen, we're going to do a committee sub and we're going to take action on it either Friday or Monday. So be ready to come back and we will take action on both these bills, but they're going to even be stronger than what you've done. And you've done a great job. You've had study
Absolutely.
committees after
Thank you
study
for working on
committee.
this.
So
Thank you.
thank you for your work on it. We will take action at the next meeting. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.